Welcome to People Love Process. Today I have another video to share with you from my course, Logo Design Process, that I developed for Retro Supply Company. Once again, it's my first full extensive course outside of LinkedIn Learning. My course includes 21 videos and over 4 hours of extensive information covering everything from scope of work, quoting a project, discovery and strategy, drawing, vector building, brand colors, organizing brand assets, and a whole lot more. You can find a link to my course in the description below. This specific video covers pairing type and customizing logo types, and I hope you find it helpful. So with that said, enjoy. In this movie, I want to show you how I approach typography selection. We'll also showcase how to use existing typefaces and modify their letter forms to produce custom logo type designs. So let's jump right into it. The first one I want to walk you through is one project for a client called Elevated Culture. And when I approach what typeface I'm going to use with the design, whatever the style of that brand mark is, and you saw the Elevated Culture in a previous movie where it was kind of that thick line style, I'm always trying to pair typography so the style of my typography complements my logo mark. I mean, you don't want it to contradict it. You don't want it to contrast it in a negative way. You want it to support the overall visual aesthetic that you've established in your brand mark that you're developing. And so in this case, I knew I wanted something a little heavy, and I just simply go through my typeface archive, and I have it organized by category. I'll show you that in just a little bit. And I just start setting it up on inside my build file for whatever the project is. And I just start typing out that name in different type styles just to see if I like something or if something's clicking. Now, this isn't a sophisticated process to do this. And by the way, it's never this nice and organized in my build file. It's pretty chaotic with just stuff everywhere. Obviously, to communicate this, I want it to be clean and presentable for you. So these are some of the typefaces. And the one I'm leaning towards that I eventually went with is this typeface right here. And this one is, I can't remember the name. Let's turn on this layer because I did include the names. This is Berthold. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that second name, Akzidens. I usually just say Berthold, grotesque, bold, extended, because I can't pronounce that name. But this is the typeface. Now, I don't include these typefaces in this course for obvious reasons, because you didn't buy them, I did. So, but I do outline the type. So this is what the typeface looks like when I type it out without adjusting any of the kerning, any of the spacing between letter forms, or any of the details. And I convert it to PAS, and this is what you get. As far as the typeface goes, this is pretty clean. I'm going to show you some typefaces that go back to the old lead type days where it was all manually created, and then at some point somebody digitized them, and those are usually true typefaces. And when you expand it, they'll have an ungodly amount of anchor points, and there's times when I tend to clean those up for usage as well. So this is the outline I've applied to it. I've already gone in and adjusted the kerning in between the letter forms. One of the things I do, if I select this V, notice you have this in it. So if I go ahead and zoom in on this, notice how instead of going straight into a point, it kind of falls down a bit. It creates this little gutter. I can't remember the exact name that's called technically. If you're a typophile and you're watching this, you're going, dude, that's this. let me know because I forgot. Somebody told me years ago and I forget. But what I usually do is on a logotype like this, that idea, it's only, think of it as a gutter for ink. It allows an area for ink to gather to deal with what was called dot gain on press. Now that goes back to old reproduction methodologies, and you don't have to worry about that so much anymore with digital methods of printing. So I tend to remove that when I'm doing a logotype. We're going to make sure we have smart guides turned on so we know we're over an anchor or we're over a path. And I'm going to go ahead and add an anchor to this, anchor to this. And the reason why I do this is because I'll just take this and I'll slide it down till it snaps to my other anchor like that. I'll go here and I'll slide this down till it snaps. Where was that guy? Right there. So it overlaps. Then I'll just go ahead and unite it. We might have some extras, so I'll click into isolation mode. By the way, if you don't use isolation mode, it's a must. Now I'll take these anchors and I'll go ahead, and I like to use the PathScribe panel here where I'll retract all the anchor handles. I'll even retract this one down here, select these two, and I'll just remove them. Up here, I don't have any handles. Here, there's one, so I'll go ahead and retract that. That's why I like using plugins. It's just, it is what it is. Now you can do that manually. Actually, let's do this last one manually. If you want to retract it, go to the anchor point tool, click on the handle, the end of it, and it'll retract it back in. So you can do it. It just goes a little faster if you have a plugin. So that's how I would adjust that letter form in this specific brand mark. You can see I put these angles in on the center bars of the, I can't remember the proper typography term for what they call those, but I angled it. I removed the crossbar in the A, so it kind of goes down and up. And that's because the name is elevated. Do you see that? I'm not thinking elevator, but I'm thinking elevation going upwards. So that's kind of why I did that, to subtly kind of give a nod towards the brand name itself. This is how it works with the logotype. So it goes well with the logotype and supports that brand as well. So it all comes down to a chosen typeface. Here's another one. This for a client called Bear. They're a power tool company based out of down in South America. And I had to come up with something like this, and I used one of my all-time favorite fonts. This typeface that I went with was one created by a designer, Mark Canseco. Brilliant typeface designer. If you don't follow him on Instagram, highly recommend it. The guy is just amazing. But he came up with Quattro Black, and if I type it out and expand it, this is what you're going to see. You can see I've made some modifications here where I brought this angle and carried it all the way up to create this. I did this to the A just to give it some unique flavor. If I select all of these, this is where I'll go in and I'll color them black. And on an outline here, I'm going to put an outline of black on it because I thought these were too thin. So I'm going to add a stroke of 4 points. I like how it beefs it up like that. Once I've done that, I'll go to Object, I'll go to Path, and I'll go Outline Stroke. But one thing I should point out is notice this is a compound path. So I'm going to show something you might have ran into. When it's a compound path, for whatever reason, Illustrator has an inconsistency when it comes to compound paths. And usually when I outline type like this, if it's a compound path, I go to Object, I go to Path, and I go to Outline Stroke, and I click that, it won't outline. In this case, it did. So if it doesn't do that, let's say it's a compound like it is here, and you go to that method to outline a stroke, and it just doesn't do anything, all you have to do is go to Object, and you go to, well, right now it's saying it's a compound. Well, wait a minute. Oh, no, it's not compound. Okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and say we want this to be a compound. Okay, so I'm going to go to Object, I'm going to go to Compound, I'm going to go to Make, like that. So if I select it, it's saying it's a compound. If I go to Object and I go to Path and I go to Outline Stroke, oh, it did work. Well, sometimes it won't. If it doesn't, just ungroup it and do it again, and it should work. It's inconsistent. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it does and it doesn't, and it just gets frustrating. Now I'll just go ahead and unite it, and this is where I just made decisions like to bring that in as a ligature to come over here. Again, right now it's a group, so I'm going to go ahead and unite it like this and turn it into a compound. And then you can use the corner widget to add around, like there. I did it. Actually, I'd do these at the same time if I'm using a corner widget because I want these to be the exact same. Oops, actually this one too. See, this is why I don't use the corner widget for this kind of detailing. I use dynamic corners by Astute Graphics because I don't have to make sure I have them all selected like that. So that's how I'd make a custom logo type. On this project, this is how the brand colors and some of the final assets I created came out. That was a lot of fun. Looks really cool on a vehicle here. And this was based in, once again, South America, hence the Spanish going on here. And that was a lot of fun. And we're going to actually cover mock-ups in an upcoming movie, and I'm going to show you the mock-ups I used to get this kind of look because they're absolutely brilliant. Let's go ahead and jump to our theme, King Donuts. This is the base black and white vector art. Now, why do I have this box here? Well, because I want everything typography-wise to be based off of the weight of his body, not the appendages. The appendages are kind of pushed out. So technically, if I selected my artwork and I focused on it like this with this box selected and I went align center, the box would actually be here. And that's not what I want. So that's why I associated it with the body. And I'll just pull it out like this so it's still centered based off of where I had it on the body, and I group it. Now, that's just something that I've done over the years just to make alignment with something that isn't mathematically alignable. Well, it's mathematically alignable, but it looks better to be optically aligned, so I'll use this methodology to do that. So when it comes to font styles, how do you organize your fonts? Well, I'm going to show you how I organize my fonts. On my workstation machine, I have a fonts folder, and it took me 7 years to get around to this. I was just too lazy to just focus on it. I decided to do it one day, and I categorized all my typefaces. I have thousands of typefaces from over the years. And all of these are organized by style categories. So as I move into a project and I figure out a style for the brand mark I want to do, that'll help align me with a category of style in my typography that I can go from. Now, I definitely have favorites, whether it's sans up here or serif. And so I have ones, go-to fonts, I guess you could call them. So I just wanted to show you that. Now, my font managing software, the one I currently used, I used Font Explorer for years, and then they retired it about last year or so. I had to find a new one. I found a great one called FontBase because it works a lot like Font Explorer did, allows me to build collections and load fonts into those collections, and I can turn those collections on and off. So when I'm done with the project, like this one with RetroScript, I'll probably go in and turn that one off since I don't need RetroScript all the time. But if we look at my font styles, notice I have RetroScript as a category because I do have some in there. And those are the ones I'm loading in FontBase. And this is the typography choice of all those typefaces that I've kind of typed out inside of Illustrator, converted to paths. And these are the ones I'm going to move forward with. There's one in specific that I saw that I think would look good, but notice how many anchor points it has. This is because this was originally old school typeface. And when it was digitized at some point and turned into a true type font, and this is what my typophile friends have told me, it just adds a lot of anchor points. They didn't spend a lot of time optimizing. And so I'm going to kind of do that, but I'm not going to do the whole King Donuts words, because that takes a while. I did do that, and I'll show you what I did, but I'll show you how I did it. So I start off with having a reference of what the original letter form looks like that I went ahead and converted to PAS, and this shows it here. Now, I find it easier to take something like this and work at it from an outline point of view. So I'm going to go to my graphic styles. I'm going to select one of my default styles, which is 5 points, or that's 7 points. Let's go to 0.5. And again, if you have Illustrator, if you look at this, this is pretty close to a tangent. This is pretty close to a tangent. So you can use Smart Remove built into Illustrator. All you have to do is go to the minus anchor point tool, hold the Shift key down, click on any anchor point, and it will remove those. And as long as it doesn't destroy the path, it'll do a relatively good job. So if we remove these and that, well, this one moved a little bit, and this one. And if we remove this, it might be, that doesn't look so bad. So you can do some of the removing that way. I'll show you a plugin that I use at times as well. Again, this is by Astute Graphics. If I click in, we're going to go to the Smart Remove brush tool. And if I decide to start right at this point and just scrub over this, based off of what I have, it says, well, if we remove these points, we can retain that path. Well, if I don't want this one, I can just highlight it, go to the Path Scribe tool, and click on the Smart Remove point button, click on it, and it'll remove that smartly. I can take this, I can remove that one. So that's how you can speed up the process, whether you have a plugin, whether you use Illustrator natively. But on this one, it's once again, vector art comes down to building the shape needed with the least amount of points being used to make it elegant. So you can see we have some anchors here. I'm going to go ahead and hold Shift down and Smart Remove this guy. So all we deal with one anchor point here in the corner. I'm going to retract this handle like that. I'll go ahead and retract this handle. Now that's going to mess up the curve, but that's okay. I'm going to add an anchor point here, because what I'm going to do is kind of extend it like this. Then I go back and I'd adjust this like this, just to get a clean anchor here. I do the same thing down here where I pull this one over, kind of overlap this one. I might go into here, and Smart Remove these. So like that. And you might be going, well, why'd you overlap it right there? Because once I go ahead and combine it, you can see this isn't in the right position. This is that brilliant reposition points tool by Astute Graphics. So I can slide it up, boom, right in the tangent. That's just an awesome tool. I call it the Vaughn tool since I'm the one that suggested it to him. But you can call it the reposition anchor point tool. Let's go ahead and Smart Remove this like that. So all we're doing is trying to get the least amount of anchor points. I might move this down just a bit, and then we can adjust this to, I don't want to change the styling of the font. That's why I chose it. So I just want to improve the simplicity. And this is a good argument where right now it's at the tangent. I don't think it necessarily has to be. So again, if I go up here, this is a tangent, but it's at an angle. And I think that almost looks better. So I can adjust it here. I can pull this in like that. If handles are too far pulled out, it makes things look flat and awkward. So if it's looking flat and awkward, you've probably overextended the Bezier handles like that. And so that looks pretty good. So you can see it doesn't go super quickly, but you can clean it up. Now, like a good cooking show, I have all my edits done. So what I end up with, and you can see where I've overlapped here and here, all I'll do now is I'll go to my Pathfinder palette, go to Unite, click Unite. Once Unite's clicked, we can select these artifacts it creates on the inside and outside and just delete those. And then if we want to go back, because if you notice, if you look at this, you notice we have a round there, we can just go back, select these anchors now, and we can add those rounds back in with the corner widget and get the same characteristic that the initial font had without all the unnecessary anchor points. So I just wanted to show you that because that's part of craftsmanship. And the original typeface here, when I converted to path, like if I select both words, it's 539 anchor points. And you can see, it's hard to even see it. If you go Command H to hide the anchor points, this would kind of benefit you just to visually see it without the anchor points getting away. But this is Zandalo Regular Script is the name of the font. Here's all the letter forms that I cleaned up and simplified. And now the total count is only 185. I also removed the dot on the I and added a nice little crown in there. I think that looks good. And so this will be one of the directions we use to explore here. Now, if I turn on the baseline and the ascenders, one thing you'll notice is on the baseline up here on the original typeface and even on the one I rebuilt, I match the descender of the G. Now, I want a version that stacks king with donuts, and I thought that this would push down too far and leave a gap like under KIN if it's stacked on donuts. And so I kind of tightened that up a little bit and brought that descender up a bit so it wouldn't cause that much spacing problem. So let's go ahead and lock up our design here. So here's our character, base art black and white with the shape we did, so we can optically or align it mathematically, but based off of optics. I'll select my logo type. Oops, don't want to copy it. We'll go ahead and focus on that, and we'll align it on the center like that. So I think that looks pretty good. And then all I'm going to do is maybe blow it up a bit. Let's go, I don't know, 140. There we go, like that. And if you want to, you can remove this after you align it. That was just to get it in a nice, perfect orientation based off of the donut body shape itself. Now, of course, this is the vertical lockup, but I also create a horizontal lockup. So here's the character with that type. And as much as I like this type initially, once I locked it up, I thought it distracted a little bit from the donut, and well, it's a little thin. I was hoping it'd work better, but this is where I'll go back to my typography choices. And I saw this one, and ironically, it's called Big Fat Script. You're going to get big fat if you eat a lot of donuts. And this is the one that I typed out. And this one didn't have so many anchor points in it. You can see only 180. And I love the fact that it kind of feels donut-y, if that's the word you can use to describe it. I did clean it up, though. I did improve some of the things where this back K felt like it was a little high. I thought it should come down more, so I improved that. I rebuilt the G on the bottom once again, so if I turn on my baseline, my descender, I didn't want it to descend too far. It's kind of nice the way they have it, but I just didn't want it to push the donut word in the stack version down too far. And if I select all of these, you can see we even knocked off 6 anchor points by improving it. This is what the black and white looks like when it's just filled in black. And I think this looks great in the stack version, and it's going to work great in the horizontal version as well. When it comes to design, never get in the habit of saying to yourself, it's good enough. If you notice a problem, typography or otherwise, fix it. If something bugs you and you can't quite figure out why, then set it aside. Stop looking at it and reapproach it with fresh eyes later, and more than likely you'll figure out what the problem is. I can't tell you how many times I've done that over the years. When customizing existing typefaces, I try to do it with what I would call a deft touch. I don't want to alter an existing letter form too much. Otherwise, I risk degrading why I like it in the first place. So find the right balance when you approach this creative task. Customizing letter forms like this is a great way to ensure your logotype designs are unique to your client and cannot be replicated easily by merely typing out an existing font. Remember, this video is just one of 21 total videos included in my course, Logo Design Process for Retro Supply Company. My course also gives you full access to exercise files and resource information for each of the 21 videos. You can find a link to my course in the description below. If you watch my course, please leave a review. I'd really appreciate it. Or comment below on this video. I always reply to comments. Thank you for watching People of Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.